The Trump administration is spotlighting the importance of mental health with a focus on kids across America.
We really do have, I think, a mental health crisis in the United States of America. We take way more psychiatric medication than any other nation on earth. That's going to be an American conversation that we're going to have together.
There are black box warnings on some of these psychiatric drugs that warn about in their clinical trials that they saw suicidal and homicidal ideation. We need to look at it, and we need to explain why all this violence is happening, and we need to look at every possibility.
Oh, man, America needs that conversation. And here to discuss is Fox News medical contributor, Dr. Nicole Saphier. Nicole, first of all, I have never seen an administration talk like this before, honestly, about the psychotropic SSRI drugs coming out of the pharmaceutical industry that so many young people are taking.
Yeah, Rachel, the kids are in crisis and the adults are to blame. When 1 in 5 children in the United States have diagnosed mental illness, 2/3 of them are not receiving the treatments that they need. I mean, that are just the kids that we know about. Now, the conversation is starting to turn to recognize this. They're starting to talk about a lot of the treatments. But the reality is, Rachel, we have to talk about why these kids are mentally ill to begin with, despite the fact that we know 3 of the main drivers. The first driver being children who are being raised in unstable or non-traditional households, children whose parents have a mental illness themselves, substance abuse disorder, or living in poverty have a 3-time risk of mental illness. 1 in 4 kids in the United States are being raised in a single-parent household. These children have twice the risk of mental illness. And the trans community, or children who have gender confusion, this is associated with these non-cohesive families. Trans children have a 7 times higher risk of psychoses. This is not hyperbole, Rachel. These are facts. And yet what the medical establishment did, they took away gender identity disorder from the diagnostic criteria to normalize it. And then you have policymakers pushing these ideologies as well. These are hurting children. This is not about placing blame. These are facts.
Looking at
the second main driver is the fact that we're looking at also marijuana, cannabis use. 1 in 6 kids who try it, they become addicted. Cannabis use in kids, 4 times the risk of psychoses. What have we done? Legalized it, normalized it. The third thing, Rachel, social media and digital use by kids. The research shows if kids spend 3 hours online on social media, this quadruples their risk of mental illness, anxiety, depression. Here in the United States, kids are spending on average 5 hours a day. Again, not blame, facts. And unfortunately, in Washington, they're not doing much to stop some of this. In fact, they are promoting it and they are fueling this mental health crisis.
Wow, listen, that is a lot of straight talk. I love it. I think you should be part of this conversation because you're laying it out exactly as it is. Let's just take one component, the trans component, because you said they were 7 times more likely to have these issues. Is it the ideology or is it the drugs that many of them are taking in order to, quote unquote, transition?
Well, that's an excellent question. And the way that they frame the conversation right now, Rachel, is they're saying that trans kids, the reason they have mental illness is because they are not widely accepted by society. They are ignoring the fact that children who are confused by their gender, that in itself may be the underlying mental illness. And on top of that, they have depression and anxiety because they don't know what to do with those emotions. And so what happens at that point? You have these children who their brains are not fully formed. A lot of them are coming from unstable family environments, and they are not doing okay, and rather than supporting them and trying to get them to a good place mentally, they're fueling them with medications and surgeries that have lifelong consequences. And you heard RFK Jr. talking about antidepressants, SSRIs, and some of these other medications. It is clear that they can cause suicidal and violent thoughts, as well as make mental illness worse, yet we are overprescribing these children, and we are not looking at the fundamental reason of why they're mentally ill to begin with.
So let's talk about what parents can do. Let's say you have a child and you're starting to see some things that are not usual. What can you do? I believe you have some tips for parents.
Listen, we can all do better as parents. This is not me saying I'm doing it right, you're doing it wrong. In fact, I think I need to learn from some of the things that I say every single day. The children are not okay, but there are some things that we know will help them and decrease their risk of mental illness. Prioritizing their sleep, making sure they're getting enough sleep. This is crucial for mental and physical health. You have to put restrictions on their cell phones. They should not be on their cell phones unless they're talking to a friend or a family member in their room. They don't need to be scrolling on social media or YouTube when they are alone. You want to make sure you're having daily face-to-face check-ins. Don't just be texting your kids. Don't just wave your hand high when they walk in the door. Stop them. Ask them about their day. What's the name of their friends? What are they doing at lunch hour, in recess? Make sure that you are a part of that life. And listen, you have to go through their rooms. I know you want to say kids deserve their privacy.
No, I don't agree
they
with that. I
don't.
think
They
you
have not
should.
earned that right.
Yes.
When they can afford the roof over their head, that's when they get it. And by the way, I'm all for drug testing your children because they're going to lie to you. And if your kids are smoking pot, if your kids are doing drugs, and you are not making sure that they are okay, then you are to blame for the consequences that comes from this. You can get those drug tests at a local drugstore. I'm sorry, invade your kids' privacy. That's going to make me very unpopular, but you have to do it. The kids are not okay, and there are some things as parents we can do. And by the way, parents, you are not an emotional support animal for your child. If you are going through issues, your kids don't need to know about it. You need to fake it until you make it and put that smile on, and you need to be the best version of yourself for your children, and you need to get the help that you need as well.
Well, you are very popular with me right now. I loved everything you had to say because I think it's the truth. And that's what we need to start talking about, the truth. Dr. Nicole Saphier, thank you for joining us today.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.